Welcome to the on-record portion of the Rockbridge Report. My name is Maggie Seybold, and today we're joined with Commonwealth's attorney, Mr. Billias. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Maggie. Thanks for the invite.
So we're going to go ahead and get started, if that's okay with you.
Certainly.
So you know, I'm sure that this morning the Regional Jail Commission met in a closed meeting and accepted Superintendent Higgins' retirement papers. What's your reaction to that move?
I didn't know he was actually going to retire. I know there's been some talk about him heading in that direction recently, but I just found out, as probably you did through channels, that he ultimately had resigned, I think, or retired, I think, and put in a letter or papers or something indicating his intention to retire. Right.
And do you think, in your opinion, that his retirement is appropriate given the investigation right now?
Well, we can't say when somebody should or shouldn't retire. And also it's important to note at this point that we don't have any particular targets of the investigation yet. So to say that it's tied into the investigation, I don't know. And I don't know if he knows or what his situation is. We've not spoken. But the fact that he has retired obviously is an interesting element of this, I guess.
And regarding the process, if there are legal proceedings, he will be in the same position regardless of whether or not he's retired.
Right. His status with the jail doesn't really matter in terms of if there were, for example, any kind of proceedings to come out of this from a criminal perspective, whether he was with the jail, not with the jail, retired or wherever, would not make a difference.
Okay, so in terms of the investigation as a whole, would you mind just walking me through the sequence of events that we know of thus far? So the original complaint was on February 28th, is that correct? Okay. And what did that complaint involve?
Well, the complaint was involving inmate-on-inmate violence, and our sheriff's office, of course, would investigate any claims of a crime occurring in Rockbridge County, and of course the jail's in Rockbridge County, and it doesn't really matter whether the alleged perpetrators or the victims are inmates or not. I mean, they investigate the crime. And in this case, it happened to be inmate violence, which is typical for the sheriff's office to do investigations. We brought prosecutions and have had successful convictions based on inmate violence here in our local jail. Not many, but we've had a few. So that was the initial complaint made. The nature of the complaint was one of the inmates being maybe forced to drink something that made him very ill and required possibly hospitalization. From that, there was a further investigation that indicated there may have been more than just one victim and more than one perpetrator. So the sheriff's office did some further investigation, came to see me on this regarding this, and after discussing the matters with the sheriff's office, we felt it was most appropriate to involve the state police in an investigation. Keep in mind, the sheriff's office and the jail share a building. Right. They're next door to each other. You've got people who work in the sheriff's office that have people that are kin and friends with them in the jail. I mean, they're facilities that are in very close proximity, and of course the sheriff and the superintendent are well known to each other. So there's a lot of issues there that we felt would, just so we don't have an appearance of impropriety, that it'd be better to bring an independent agency in to do the actual investigation. In this case, of course, would be the state police, the only other agency that would have jurisdiction would be the state police here at the state level. So we thought it would look better because, we don't want anyone to say that the sheriff's office, for example, didn't investigate or investigated too much because of a political thing, or didn't investigate because they're covering for, someone they know, or for people that work in the jail that they're friendly with. So there are issues that we want to avoid entirely, and we thought from a very early process the best thing to do was bring the state police in to begin the investigation on the inmate claims. Okay.
And just to back up to clarify a few things. So the initial complaint had to do with, and was it a male inmate?
This was on
okay. So the initial complaint had to do with him being forced to drink the caustic substance, and then he.
Well, let me say, I'm not sure it was a caustic. It was the impression was it was something that would make someone very ill.
Okay.
And I say caustic substance only to the extent that it was something that would, in other words, you're not drinking, orange juice. And this is something that would make you sick intentionally, make you ill. So that was the nature of the complaint initially.
And that was the first complaint, and then from there, the sheriff's office found incidences of assault.
Correct. There's assaultive behavior that had occurred at the facility, and they discovered that when they were doing this investigation, that there also had been some other individuals that there had been some allegations of assault made. Now, of course, understand, Maggie, at this point, these are just allegations. No one's charged with anything yet. And as far as the investigation goes, it's just investigating right now. So we don't I cannot comment upon the investigation other than to say at this point it has led to a broader investigation, which includes investigation of the facility as a whole. Now, sometimes people get ideas from that of we're targeting people or something like that, and that's not the case at all. When you have a case of this nature, as they begin their investigation, there is sometimes, and in this particular case, required to be a fuller investigation than what we initially anticipated, and they're doing that.
Right.
Their state police are involved in a full investigation of the facility and the people in the facility.
Okay, and with the initial complaints and the things that the sheriff's office investigated, when the inmate drank the substance that made him ill, was that a disciplinary action? Was he forced to do that by another inmate?
This is not allegation. This is by other inmates, right?
Other
the allegation was
inmates.
inmate on inmate violence was the initial complaint.
Okay, and the violence being that he.
Correct.
Gotcha. Correct. Okay, thank you for that
And
clarification.
any act that would be, whether you make somebody drink something that makes them sick, or whether you physically assault them or do whatever, that's a violence issue. It's a person-to-person violence issue.
Right. And if a violence complaint like that is brought up, would Higgins know about that, or did it go straight to the sheriff's
I would imagine a
office?
superintendent would know about that. I mean, it's his jail, so he
Right.
would know, I imagine, about anything that's going on within his facility. I mean, there's 130 maybe inmates there. It's not a huge jail.
Right.
So typically the superiors, the administration, the superintendent, captains, lieutenants would know about the nature of this complaint because it's something that's going to be brought to their attention, I'm sure.
Right, and so then the second, when the sheriff's office investigated again and they found other issues of assault, that was just other instances of assault, not including the original, or including the original,
Correct. That's exactly, including the original and other instances or other persons who might have been,
Gotcha.
Victims of assault.
So you said the investigation will be very broad. Like, what does broad necessarily entail?
Well, when you're beginning an investigation of this nature, you don't want to define and say we're only going to look at the inmate-on-inmate issues if we have information that might require us to look broader at broader issues. When people are in a facility, and if there's incidences that occur in a facility, you have to look to see how did that occur and why would that occur. And of course, that could implicate people that work at the jail, for example. And so because of that, you'd want to make sure that you're doing a thorough investigation, not just of the incidents themselves, but what might have led to that, or how we didn't know, or how it could have happened within the facility. So those are things that require a broader investigation at different levels. And that's where we are at this particular time.
Okay, and so the broad look is just at the jail, or does it potentially extend beyond the jail?
We don't know yet.
Right, right. So
yeah, we'll figure that out as the investigation continues. We'll realize how far we have to go. I'm sure there's some limitation because once you get to a certain point, you just can't go further than that. And, the investigation of the jail is going to be probably of the facility, but I cannot say it wouldn't go into other areas. I don't know.
Right, and so do you expect that they're investigating something that may have been persisting over a longer period of time than just this year?
That's another thing we're looking at. See, I don't know, and that's what we have to look at. And the reason you have to have a broad investigation is to say, is this something that only happened one time? Is there a systemic issue? Is there something you have to look at over a period of time? And because these kind of investigations are very time-consuming, a lot of information has to be obtained, a lot of records to look through, a lot of people spoken to, that it's going to be a very significant and long-term investigation that would be, I would be remiss to say at this point we're doing anything in particular until we really have a better feel for ourselves for what are we really looking at and what are we looking at historically. Is there a historical thing to look at as well?
And in terms of the span of time that has passed, this isn't the first instance of inmate violence at the Rockbridge Regional Jail.
Correct.
I'm sure most local jails deal with violence on some level. But does the investigation have anything to do at all with the Lone Wolf case from 2013? I don't know.
Well, no, it doesn't have anything to do with the Lone Wolf case. That was a case where a person sued for, I think, denial of medical treatment or medical care or something along those lines.
He was actually, John Lone Wolf was badly beaten by another inmate at the jail.
In the facility, and we prosecuted that.
And then was, hospitalized for a period of time, and as a result, he sued both Higgins and another corrections officer. And those charges are...
It was civil, though. Yeah.
Yes, and it's still outstanding, and he actually got out 2 weeks ago.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So, I mean, it's not the first instance of violence at the jail.
It's going to happen. Jails, unfortunately, you've got a confined place with people who don't mind breaking the law. I mean, jails are not pleasant, friendly places. I mean, people don't want to go to jail. It's part of the reason why when you commit a criminal offense, there's got to be a sanction for that. And there's got to be a penalty to hopefully discourage people from getting into criminal activities. And so jails are going to have issues. I mean, it's just, and every jail, every prison has them. Typically less at a local level than you do at state level, because usually you have less serious offenders at the local jails. At any rate, you are going to have that sometimes. And part of the responsibility of the facility is to make sure that you do everything you can to lessen the possibility of there being these kind of incidents. And I'm not going to say our jail has a long history of problems, because I'm not aware of that they're having a long history of problems. We haven't prosecuted that many cases out of our jail. But at the same time, for us to say, well, we're not going to look at things, they're going to look at everything. And the state police are going to be able to look at, like Lone Wolf, and to see whether or not there's any improprieties that occurred there that might be of a criminal nature. Not just, that's a civil case, obviously, but is there anything that might criminally be looked at or need to be looked at in that regard? And again, we don't know. It's something that's going to have to be done through that process. Right.
And in terms of decreasing that chance of inmate-on-inmate violence, Lone Wolf actually cited in his initial case that he felt that the overcrowding at the jail had something to do with it, because the tensions were so high.
Correct.
And the regional jail, the Rockbridge Regional Jail, has been overcrowded for some time.
Yes.
And in an interview with Higgins in January, he told me that they have on average 140 inmates in the facility that can hold just under 100.
Correct.
So do you think the overcrowding has anything to do with the problems that the investigation is looking at?
Let me say this, I don't know. I don't have really expertise to know about the psychology of and the sociological aspects of, the confinement of these inmates within a smaller facility. I could say, obviously, it doesn't help. Like in any situation where you have a crowding situation amongst any group of people, that's going to tend to lend itself to more problems, obviously. If people have space and it can cool out and things like that, obviously that's a better thing. And if you're putting 6 people where 2 people belong, obviously that could be problematic. Or having, for example, open cells where you typically wouldn't want to have a group cell, but you have to because you don't have the facility to maintain, 2 per cell, for example. When you have those situations, you're always going to have the potential for more problems. The issue then becomes, do the taxpayers of the county and city and Buena Vista City, do they want to pay more money to expand the facility? I think there was at one point a referendum to have a larger facility built, and that had been turned down by the taxpayers, my understanding. So that's something that becomes a burden to the people that pay the taxes and have to pay for a facility of that nature. We are not getting less crimes. We're getting a lot more crimes, and we're prosecuting a lot more cases. So I don't think it's a problem that's going to go away, and eventually will have to be dealt with. Does the overcrowding situation help this situation? I think it probably hurts and creates more possibility for injuries. Is that the only reason you have that? I can't say that. I don't know.
Right. And I recently spoke to another corrections officer who worked at the jail, and she said that many of the women who are in the jail right now are in there because of drug-related incidences. Can you speak at all to your experience with prosecuting those cases with drugs in this area?
I would think that the great majority of women in our jail probably are drug-related offenses, either distribution, most of the time. Possession, we usually, if you're a first offender possession, you don't do any jail time, and even if you have some other offenses and don't get first offender, typically it requires more than just possession to go to jail. Typically you have to have distribution. And so a lot of the females we have, there's not a lot of females there, but a lot of the ones we have certainly are drug related or financial crimes that have a substance abuse component. In other words, someone will break into a house or steal something because they want to buy drugs. And want access to illegal substances. Prescription fraud, we have some people for prescription fraud. So there are those offenses, and most of them are substance abuse related that we have in our female population. Not so much of the violent, we have maybe 1 or 2 violent offenders, but most of them are not. Most of them are drug related. Drugs are a serious problem in every community. We're certainly not, it's not exclusive to Rockbridge County and the city of Lexington. It is a problem everywhere. And all of the various agencies that deal with these problems try to come up with novel solutions and to deal with a very difficult problem. The problems of substance abuse are multi-layered, and the criminal justice system alone only has one potential solution, which is take people out of society, which is not always the best one. There are a lot of other agencies that have a component that really to help lessen the incidence and to get people out of the drug problem so they aren't reoffending. And we need all those agencies to help and work together, because I think by collaboration with the various agencies, we'll have a better outcome for these drug cases. But at this time, until we have better services available here in Rockbridge and Lexington, you can't also let people run around, steal things, deal drugs on your corners, where you're going to have your kids walking home from school, or where people want to go to McDonald's and you got drug dealing in a parking lot. It makes it a lousy area to live in. We want to avoid that.
Right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Maggie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.